For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and agree to the resolution H-Res 1155 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Resolution 1155, resolution commending the progress made by anti-tuberculosis programs.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from New York, Mr. Engel, and the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Ros-Lehtinen, each will control 20 minutes. Chair recognizes the gentleman from New York.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remark and include extraneous material on the resolution under consideration.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, this is my resolution, and I'm proud to be the lead sponsor of it. And I rise today in honor of this resolution to fight tuberculosis, which I introduced with my good friends from Texas, Ted Poe and Gene Green, and I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
House Resolution 1155 seeks to commend the progress made by U.S. anti-tuberculosis programs at the CDC, USAID, NIH, and Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria, and to reaffirm the House's historic commitment to global TB control made through the Lantos Hyde Act enacted 2 years ago. My own legislation, the Stop Tuberculosis Now Act, was folded into the PEPFAR reauthorization, and I remain grateful to Chairman Berman and Ranking Member Ros-Lehtinen, the gentlewoman from Florida, for their strong support of this significant investment in tuberculosis control. The chairman of the Subcommittee on Africa and Global Health, Mr. Payne, is also to be commended for his commitment to tuberculosis control as well. Mr. Speaker, TB is the second leading global infectious disease killer behind HIV/AIDS, claiming approximately 1.8 million lives each year. TB is the leading killer of people with HIV/AIDS. TB control must be strengthened as part of a comprehensive approach to women's health. TB is the third leading killer of adult women globally, and women who develop the disease are more likely to die from it than men. The risk of premature birth or having a low birth weight baby double for women with TB, and those who receive a late diagnosis are 4 times as likely to die in childbirth. Mr. Speaker, about 500,000 people fall ill each year with multi-drug resistant TB, but the World Health Organization estimates that less than 5% are receiving appropriate treatment, which is one of the factors fueling the spread of drug-resistant tuberculosis. Although the number of TB cases in the United States is declining, the nature of this infectious disease presents a persistent public health threat to the United States. Tuberculosis is a significant public health problem for the border states of California, Texas, New York, Florida, and others. Drug-resistant TB poses a particular challenge to domestic TB control owing to the high costs of treatment and intensive health care resources required. Treatment costs for multi-drug resistant TB range from $100,000 to $300,000 per person, which can cause a significant strain on state public health budgets. In 2008, 107 cases of MDR-TB were reported in the United States. Of particular concern is that 4 extensively drug-resistant TB cases were reported, double the number from 2007. H-Res 1155 calls attention to the critical need for a public and private reinvestment into research to develop new TB diagnostics, drugs, and vaccines to replace antiquated technologies that hinder our progress against tuberculosis. Although drugs, diagnostics, and vaccines for TB exist, these technologies are increasingly inadequate for controlling the global epidemic. The most commonly used TB diagnostic in the world, sputum microscopy, is more than 100 years old and lacks sensitivity to detect TB in most HIV/AIDS patients and in children. The TB vaccine, BCG, provides some protection to children, but has little or no effect in preventing pulmonary TB in adults. We will never defeat TB without a public and private research investment into new tuberculosis tools. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of H.Res. 1155 to be on record in supporting the global fight against tuberculosis, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlewoman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
I am pleased to rise in support of the gentleman's resolution. Tuberculosis is truly a significant challenge for all of us. It is a disease that respects no borders, that claims the lives of over 1.8 million lives worldwide every year, and that continues to cause needless deaths every day. It is a major threat to peoples living in developing countries, but it is also a health risk here in the United States and in other developed countries. As this resolution correctly points out, drug therapies that are currently used to treat tuberculosis are proving less and less effective as new and different strains of tuberculosis continue to build and develop resistance to these drugs. There are about 9.4 million new cases of tuberculosis each year. In addition, according to recent news reports, it is estimated that 440,000 people worldwide have been infected with deadly multi-drug resistant tuberculosis in 2008 alone. Just recently, the World Health Organization released a report that underlined the continuing threat from the spread of drug-resistant forms of tuberculosis. Furthermore, as statistics reported by the World Health Organization note, parts of Africa face a truly staggering threat due to the large numbers of those suffering from AIDS in those regions who are extremely vulnerable to tuberculosis. In such regions, tuberculosis can indeed be a fatal sentence of rapid and painful death. The standard drug regimen for tuberculosis is severely outdated. With current treatment methods, patients treated for tuberculosis have to stay on medication for far too long, and that means that there can be lapses in medication that only feed resistance among strains of the disease. And so new forms of treatment, new forms of therapies, and new vaccines are needed. But what is needed also at a fundamental level is the continued recognition of the dangerous nature of this disease and the commitment to continue the struggle against it. I thank my colleagues, the gentleman from New York, my good friend Mr. Engel, and the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Poe, for introducing this important resolution. Its adoption by this House should reinforce the message that we will continue to support the vital efforts to fight this disease. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I have no further requests for time, so I yield back the balance of our time.
The gentlewoman yields back her time. The gentleman from New York.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, before I yield back the balance of my time, I want to thank my good friend, Congresswoman Ros-Lehtinen, who has partnered with me in so much good legislation through the years, and I really do appreciate her support. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and agree to House Resolution 1155 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the Chair, two-thirds being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.